Oh, hey, Victor. How are things going?
Sorry, super late, but good, good. Just got out of some meetings here, um, and some catch up on the async jco stuff. Oh, I think my video never started. Hold on. Excellent.
Hello, we're on the floor. Uh, and network is not very good. My It's really my network that's maybe a little bit strange. Um, but I'm sitting at the project pavilion right now. I'll give you I'll maintain so call to action. People filing bug and hard in this thing and add love to I just died, didn't I? Yeah, cool. Conference networking. My bad. Did you hear anything that I said?
I barely heard anything, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But I blame you. I blame your connection.
I mean, it's definitely my connection. So that reason, maybe very around the house update some things, and we are most since I'm hostess on the worst network that is a conference network. Nope, nothing. Okay, okay. Uh, hey,
Oh, yeah, sure. So it'll be a bunch of updates for jco. So I'll do that. Let me share my screen here.
Okay, so yes.
If I can. Oh, it's the usual screen share is not allowed. Bailey.
So yeah, so how about now?
Okay, now I can. Thank you. Okay, so I think people should be able to see my screen now. Basically, there have been a bunch of releases that have gone out over the last little while here. So the main work that's going on right now in jco is work on the async P3 implementation, and so that I'm busily working on and trying to really just make sure there are no bugs in the current implementation, and well, fixing the bugs as I find them. But outside of that, so last week I took a little bit of time to address some bugs and some fixes on the jco repo. And just for people who don't know, so jco is tooling for the JavaScript, sort of the JavaScript side of the WebAssembly ecosystem. So there are three sort of projects that make currently that make WebAssembly components on like in JavaScript work. There is StarlingMonkey, which is a engine, right? So it is a fork of SpiderMonkey that runs in Wasm. There is ComponentizeJS, which takes StarlingMonkey, which runs in WebAssembly, and sort of like runs your JavaScript in StarlingMonkey inside a component. And then there is jco, which sort of wraps all that together. You can use ComponentizeJS directly, or you can use it through jco componentize. There's a subcommand for that. And jco adds stuff like TypeScript type support for like generating TypeScript from your WIT. in the future, it's going to process TypeScript directly. Also, it also acts as a host. So this means that you can take a WebAssembly component and run it anywhere that you have a JS engine. So like, let's say V8, for example, not StarlingMonkey, but let's say V8, or in the browser, it will take a WebAssembly component and turn it into something that can be run on the browser or on like in Node.js with V8 underneath. So basically what it does is it takes a WebAssembly component, breaks it into core modules, adds some shim and glue code to do sort of component model stuff, and then gives you a full, like a JavaScript module, like a folder with files in it, that will do the functionality or perform the functionality that your component was written to do, right? So it basically makes your component runnable in JavaScript. As long as you have access to like the WebAssembly built-in, right? The little like MDN sort of like, or I say MDN, but like the built-in WebAssembly object. So, so Jaco, that is sort of background on the Jaco project in general for people who aren't familiar with it. The part that takes a component and turns it into a JavaScript project that can be run is Jaco transpile. So up until now, this was usually built into Jaco directly. So you would call Jaco transpile like via the CLI, but it wasn't. It was also available via API, or like via, like, you can think of it as an SDK, I guess, from Jaco itself. Some people wanted to use just transpile, the functionality, without the rest of Jaco, because Jaco does type stuff. Jaco does obviously pulls in componentize to do componentization, but people wanted to use Jaco transpile by itself. Some users had filed a bug request, or basically a feature request, and wanted to get transpile, like transpiling bytes as a sort of interface. So that went in, and sort of new versions of Jaco transpile went out last week. So that's one thing that sort of been happening in Jaco land. Another large thing that landed was the first release, and then the first sort of like stable release of jco-stl. So jco-stl, the idea is a standard library for interoperability with the sort of, or I should say easy interoperability, or sort of an easy adapters to the WebAssembly ecosystem for popular projects. So one of the sort of like banner example here is Hono integration. So Hono is a essentially a web serving framework. You can think of it like a micro framework. You can think of it like Express or Fastify, stuff like that. The difference about, or one of the key differences of Hono is that it is web sort of like, or WinterTC, if anyone's familiar with that, or sort of interoperable JavaScript standards first. So that means that it deals with like web requests and web responses, right? So for people familiar with like the JavaScript ecosystem, you know that Node has as like a request object, right? You have the request object or response object you might use in the browser. Hono basically defaults to the browser version, right? It's not tied to Node as a platform. So that means that Hono can run in a WebAssembly platform as well. So adding support and making it really easy to run Hono from the WebAssembly platform is part of what jco-stl does. Now, the idea behind jco-stl is to do this for lots of things, right? So Hono is one of them, but like we want to have a thing that kind of looks like Express, which is I think what like, honestly, what I think the majority of the Node.js servers out there are, like all the legacy code is probably just still Express. There's a ton of Fastify out there as well. But basically, ideally, these shims are not necessary in the sort of like in the long span of time, because we'll have Node.js bindings that just work. So you can just take Node code off the shelf. But Hono is like, for example, a special case because it's not tied to Node, right? You need to sort of do this translation from WASI or WebAssembly primitives to what Hono expects, right? So it's, and that in this case is the sort of WinterTC stuff. So there's some differences there, but ideally jco-stl is a place for adapters that make it easier to write familiar JavaScript into WebAssembly components. So this is an example of that here. So basically you've got, most of this is just normal sort of Hono stuff. You've got the import, you've got like app creation. All of this is just, this would exist whether this was, you know, a normal Node.js project or not. And then here are the special bits, right? So this import here, which is a bit long, but it basically gives you the Hono sort of fire function, which is essentially sort of a side tangent. Hono means fire. So like it means a flame. So like they have this little fire sort of function that you kind of call, and that sort of starts your app, right? And so we import fire instead of from the usual place, which comes from inside Hono. We take it from jco-stl. So it's a sort of adapter of sorts. And then here, normally calling this line would be all you needed to start your Hono app. But because we're using WebAssembly, there's a little bit more required in that we have to add an export that is a incoming handler. And what that means is it handles incoming web requests, right? So we add that here at the bottom. And again, this handler is actually built for you. So all you have to do is export it. You don't have to implement it, right? Basically behind the scenes, it gets implemented when you call this. And so with these lines of codes, with only these lines of code, you have a Hono working server that sort of looks mostly like a regular Hono server. A lot of the stuff that's built for Hono, like the middlewares and like all sorts of plugins, are built against a very basic interoperable sort of layer at the bottom, right? So like I said, web requests, web responses, etc. So that means you can actually use a lot of that stuff out of the box. So that's kind of the point, the point of this. So one thing I do want to show is that on the website, there's actually a guide now for WebAssembly with WASI. So this is how this has landed. I think sometime last week or sorry, early this week, I think. And then this guide basically goes through, and just like all the other guides, right? So you've got like guides on how to run Hono on Cloudflare workers, how to run in a Dino, how to run in a Bun, Fastly, you know, AWS Lambda, you know, Supabase, and then you've got WebAssembly here. So basically the WebAssembly goes through setting up all these projects. So you've got Jaco, you've got ComponentizeJS, you've got jco-stl there. And then it walks someone through, right? Even like, you know, how you would bundle all your code, right? Because we sort of need to bundle. And how you would build, again, this app, right? And how you would build a Hono app for the WebAssembly platform as it exists now. Again, as the JS ecosystem sort of evolves, the jco-stl library or the jco-stl sort of package should be less and less necessary. But for now, it's a good, like, this is a lot easier than writing a lot of implementation that you'd have to write yourself to sort of bridge the types, right? Like, it's possible. It's just we wanted to make it easier for people. And then, yeah, so if you basically the upshot of doing all of this is that you can take your JavaScript that was a Hono server, you can build it to WebAssembly, and then whether you run it in Wasm time or you use jco-serve, which is an option right here. Again, jco-serve is experimental, so you want to use the sort of like tried and tested Wasm time, which is the bigger and sort of more actively maintained engine. And by engine I mean WebAssembly runtime. So you can take your JavaScript that was a Hono app, you can add a little bit of, you know, sort of jco-stl imports to kind of make it work, and then you can compile that to WebAssembly, a WebAssembly component, and you can run that, and you could run it as a web server. So you can run it via jco-serve, or you can use Wasm time serve as well. So what's nice is that this is now sort of merged upstream, and sort of people can sort of know how to do this. Of course, this is probably going to bring more users and more people who sort of kick the tires on Jaco. And we're happy to have, you know, people file bug reports and tell us, you know, where things don't work and where things do work. So yeah, so that also went out. jco-stl is a, you know, open source. Anyone, you can look at it. All the code's out there. It's in the Jaco repo. So easy to find. Yeah. And then outside of this, the the rest of the work that is going into Jco is async implementations. So I've covered this before, but Jco async is the second host implementation for P3, and P3 is the version of the component model that adds streams, futures, and native async to the component model. So we're working on that. We've got some cool stuff that has been released now to sort of like out in the wild on the Jco side, and yeah, we'll keep cranking on that. Oh, and also one thing I will add before I throw it back to Bailey, a bunch of Jco is also been moved and is being moved to TypeScript. So if that was stopping people from contributing before, it's TypeScript now. So large parts of it are TypeScript now. So feel free to jump in. Should be a lot easier. All right. Well, Bailey, I don't know if Bailey's still here. Well, she's definitely still here. Oh, she's definitely not still here. Actually, now. So I guess this is my meeting now. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions or any comments on the Jco stuff, or just like projects in general, etc.? All right. It seems like no one has any questions. We'll wait and see if Bailey comes back. I know her internet's pretty bad, but let me stop sharing at least.
Hey, I'm here. I was listening.
Oh, yeah. You just,
okay.
yeah, you froze right up until you said okay. But here.
Okay.
No, but you're back now.
Do you mind? Can you share the things in the chat? That's all I gotta say, and then we can wrap this thing up. If you'll say it out loud, Victor or Mike.
Yeah, I will. I'll share them.
Like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So so note that there is a new WASH release. So WASH 2.0.0 RC3 is out. We're getting really close to pushing 2.0.0, the sort of final thing out there, which is great, because this basically represents our sort of new vision for WASH and the runtime as well. Like, I think the name is a little bit misleading, but the new version of WASH comes with WASH and a new runtime underneath that is a lot simpler than the old stuff. Of course, the old stuff will continue to work, and this sort of new version of WASH is got a lot of changes in it, and it's pretty exciting. So if you're keeping up with the point releases, we've got another release candidate out there, 0.3, so you can check that out. Eric also has a blog on WasmCon, which is, you can actually watch it live, right? So as the sort of Wasm Cloud team enjoys WasmCon, you can keep up with what's going on, and basically all the things we're presenting and stuff that's really interesting as well. Along with that, we've got the doc change of the week. So pull request 1018. Here, let me share my screen for the, so you can see what the, so this is the page for the live blog. And this is the RC3 release that was put out 3 days ago. Very, very fresh. Lots of fixes by Lucas and Bailey here. And here is the live blog page. So you can see the URL right here. We've got the WasmCon NA live blog. Again, we've got a lot of stuff going on. So there's you've got the welcome, like Bailey gave the welcome talk, talks by Luke, talks by Elizabeth, and so just this gets longer as stuff goes on. So please make sure to check back. And here, this is our doc change of the week, which was adding the introduction in the runtime section. So this is actually already live, so you can see it. You can see it now. So let's see. Let's see if this link is still live. I don't know if it's still live. It's probably not still live.
Hey, Victor, I dropped the link to the specific doc that I wanted to give a shout out to in that same comment chat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is okay. Yeah. So this I think this is it. I think they're the same. Okay, they're not the same page. Yeah. Okay. So it's just this runtime page. So you've got the yeah. This is the page describing the new Wash runtime, which is what again. This is the version's a little old, so we actually want. I don't know if RC3. Okay, RC3 isn't up there yet, but we'll just pretend that RC1 is RC3. And this page goes through and sort of lays out the architecture. So like how this host and we're calling this like sort of the Wash runtime, right? Works compared to basically the previous Wasm Cloud host, and also which like interfaces we've got support for, etc. This host is a little bit unique and more flexible in that you can actually add plugins that we've written or that you write, and you can build sort of your own host to run and then run workloads on. So in the past, a lot of this stuff like required sort of setting up a client for like NATs, like setting up a NATs client, setting up a NAT server, making sure all that was running. And here it's a lot more streamlined, right? Like sort of getting a host running, especially if you want to write your own custom embedding and sort of write your own custom host. It's like just these lines right here, which is pretty short and I think pretty declarative, right? Because we've got sort of a reasonable names for workloads rather than like sort of having to jumble components and providers necessarily. And we've got sort of easy to grok or at least straightforward looking plugin implementation, right? So we've got an engine and we've got plugins, right? And it's sort of kind of clear what they do. And of course, this code is all available, so you can take a look directly. Yeah, and for those specifically people who want to embed and run from Rust, this is all this stuff is also packed behind features so that you can sort of slim down the host that you're building. So like if you don't need HTTP, don't include it. If you don't need blob store or key value or whatever, don't include it. And it's really easy to build a host and add custom functionality to it and start running your WebAssembly workloads on it. Again, with the WebAssembly workloads connected to those plugins and being able to call them. Yeah, and I think that is it from the stuff that you posted into chat, Bailey. Does anyone have any questions on any of that? Okay. Yeah, I don't think there are no questions right now. Thanks, Mike, for taking a look at V2. Please file bugs and request for documentations. Like anything that feels painful, we'd like to know. That'd be awesome. Yeah, the goal is no pain. So if it feels delightful, please let us know as well. But in general, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Bailey, if you want to come back and wrap it up, I guess. If you can, I don't know if the internet will allow you. Also, it feels like you should be able to get on like cell phone internet. You should be able to just tether and hopefully get, not be competing with every single person at the conference. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike. Were you going to say something?
No, wrong button. That, beginner mistake.
Yeah, we'll see if Bailey comes back here. I'll stop sharing.
Thanks for being the host, Victor, ad hoc host. Appreciate it.
No worries. No.
My network's so bad that I shouldn't even wrap up the call. So I'm just gonna say that's it for today. Thanks everybody for
If only
joining.
there were like network vendors at that conference that could provide high quality network. But it's a Kubernetes conference, so probably not. Yeah, I guess. Just no one who's good at networking is in the building.
Well, see you all next week. Thank you.
See you later.